Let's take a look at an example of rejecting unreasonable claims based on average statistics. A private college advertised that last year their freshman students, on average, had a score of 1,120 on the college entrance exam. Assuming that average refers to the mean, which of the following claims must be true based on this information? Note, more than one statement could be true. If none of the statements is true, mark the appropriate box. So we are going to look at each statement and try to decide whether it is true or false based on the information provided to us. First statement, last year, some of their freshman students had a score of more than 900 on the exam. To have an average of 1,120 on the college entrance exam, it must be true that some values could be equal to that score. Some students could get higher score while some got lower score to average at 1,120. So last year some of the freshman students had a score of more than 900 seems very reasonable because there must be higher scores than 900 to average at a higher number of 1,120. So I would say this is definitely a true statement. Next statement. Last year, at least one of their freshman students had a score of 1,120 or above on the exam. This statement is also true because to average 1,120 on that test, they must have scores that are higher or at least of the same size as 1,120. Otherwise, your average would never reach that value if all of the scores were less than 1,120. So I'm going to say this is a yes. Last year, more than half of their freshman students had a score of at least 1,120 on the exam. This is questionable. It may not be true because maybe they had a few higher scores but extremely high and they pulled the mean to an average of 1,120, but it doesn't necessarily mean that more than half of freshman students had to have a score at least as high as 1,120. So we are going to reject this one. Last year, at least one of their freshman students had a score of exactly 1,120 on the exam. We're going to reject this statement as well, because when you worked with mean and you had to calculate a mean, did you always get the mean exactly equal to the one of the values in your set? It absolutely doesn't have to happen, and it actually typically doesn't happen. So we cannot guarantee it happened in this case. Next year, some of their freshman students will have a score of at least 1,120 on the exam. We will reject this statement as well because last year's data doesn't necessarily impact the future year's data, so we have no way of predicting what the average will be. And therefore, we cannot state that next year some of the freshman students will have a score of at least 1,120 on the exam. We just don't know.